able to get the financial benefits that are available through solar energy generating equipment, and to offer that those savings essentially along to the town, and to have the town be on a pathway to gain ownership of the system within a condensed time frame compared to if they were not able to take those tax benefits. So that's essentially what the deal is. Yes?
So at the end of 20 years, the town would own solar panels?
Well, actually, the town has an opportunity to own the system before that. We need to legally own the system for 6 years, and then anytime after that, in the agreement, the town would be able to purchase the system. Yep. So we reviewed the town's electric bills, and which is how we essentially came up to the 61.8 kW size range. The system that we're proposing to install is a ballasted ground mount system at the transfer station. This picture up here is a picture of what 10 panels would look like. So the modules that we spec'd out here are Adani 72 cell 340 watt panels. We would be offering something equivalent to that at this point, probably not that exact module, just due to availability, but it would be a tier 1 equivalent module in the same power class and potentially more in power class. The inverters that we have recommended for the project are Solar Edge inverters. There's a 208 volt service there, and we'd be using a single 43.2 kW inverter for the project.
If I could ask a question about that, the tier 1 equivalent, is that an industry standard, or how would you explain what that classification is?
Well, tier 1 is really basically just it's a rating of a company and what their financial capacity really is, and that's what a lot of tier 1 boils down to, is companies that are stronger are able to achieve a tier 1 rating, and that's usually due to having a good product behind them that they're selling, and being a solid company that's able to provide a product that's within a whole offering that supports the warranty and the longevity of it and things like that.
Okay, so it's more about if we need service in 15 or 20 years, the likelihood that company would still be around to provide it, is that?
Exactly.
Yeah, okay,
Yep.
all right. Thank you.
Yep. Yep. Yes.
The 61.8, is that enough to meet current needs or enough to meet projected needs in 20 years, or what?
That's enough to meet current needs. So one important component here that we haven't talked about is basically how the town would be compensated for this electricity, and that would happen through net energy billing, which is one of the laws here in the state of Maine, which allows people, individuals and towns and organizations to connect electric generating systems to the utility grid that are rated to do that. So through net energy billing, the town would receive credits for the solar kilowatt hours, and essentially the credit currently is not worth a 1-to-1, but is projected to be back on that course very soon. I don't know how many people are plugged into the policy end of solar in the state of Maine, but we've had a few tranche backs in the compensation level, but it is the forecast is that those tranches will step forward again, and the full net energy billing credit exchange is likely to come back. So anyway, so that's currently what's going on, and the town would be able to get credits to apply to all of the different accounts that the town owns. So the generating account, which would be at the transfer station, would be offset directly by the array, and then all the exported kilowatt hours would be put into a bank and or allocated to the different meters around the town.
We can't sell excess energy, so that's why it's sized correctly for
Exactly.
what we currently anticipate our needs to be. And I think
That's right.
actually we probably shot for around 90% or 95%.
It's a little less, yeah. I don't have
And
the exact.
and so when we talk about
percentage, but-
electricity too, it doesn't cover streetlights, is that correct?
That's correct,
That
yes.
account is kind of a separate arrangement.
Yep, you can't apply net energy billing credits to streetlights. It's a
So
different.
That's a
the
law.
transfer station,
That's
this
right.
building, the library, the fire station,
Salt sand shed, we actually
Okay,
draw a
salt
lot
sand,
on that,
okay.
keeping the equipment going in the winter, yep.
okay?
Yep, so,
So what happens to the credits? Like, do they expire in a certain amount of time if we don't use as much as?
they do, so they are a year, you have a year of rolling credits. So if you don't use up the total amount of power within a year, you'll lose whatever extra credits are in the bank.
We'll have a free
Without-
charge
without
your
any
phone night
value.
in December.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we could only wish for that.
As I recall, that's one of the driving factors in how you size the system, because you don't want to size it so that we're making 25% more energy than we would use, because then we're paying for a bigger system, and we can't do anything with that excess
That's right,
energy that we've made.
that's right, yeah.
We can't sell it back to anybody, we can't give it away to anybody. It just goes into the system for free.
Under the current net energy billing rules, that's how it would work, is, any overproduction of what the town would consume would go back to, other ratepayers, essentially, with no compensation for the town. In the future, it's possible that there'll be a whole different mechanism to compensate around, which would not be net energy billing. It would be more or less long-term contracts where you have a fixed rate of energy, and that's what you're paying for. It's likely to be lower than the full retail value of that kilowatt hour, but higher than a wholesale value or a high enough value to still have solar be a win. That's kind of what is being proposed in legislation right now. So it's not currently what exists here in the state. It's likely wouldn't be implemented for a year, at least, maybe longer, once after after the legislation has accepted the bill and moved it forward. So, and there's likely a pathway for anybody that is installing now that would be able to opt into a future, structure to have compensation. That's many of the past bills that we've looked at over the last 8 years have all included a pathway forward for grandfathered systems.
Perfect.
But that being said, I am not the rule maker here.
Right.
I'm not the legislation, so I'm only projecting what I've seen in past bills.
Could you explain again how you came up with the 74,000 kilowatt hours?
Yes, so that number came from National Renewable Energy Laboratories PV Watts software. So it's a free program online, and basically we go onto the software and we enter the site, and it uses data points, weather station data points, to map what the projected solar output would be based on the inputs that we put in. So we put in, the DC size of the system, we put in, the size of the inverter, we put in, if there's going to be any derating factors from snow or soiling from pollen or things like that that can degrade the production of the system a little bit.
So that 74,000 kilowatt hours is the output capacity of the system. How does that compare with our actual usage over the past couple of years?
I think it's, again, slightly lower than what the town's actual usage is. I think let's see, I had I'm gonna do my,
So the math is roughly that 61.8 kilowatt hours equals 12 months of the the
Well,
74?
Nope, the 61.8, it would be the actual nameplate rating of the array size.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then what it produces is the 74,
Okay.
250.
But again.
In year
the
one.
The 74,250 is what all of our bills, very close percentage underneath them.
Yeah, let me grab a.
Marty did give me a heads up he was going to ask that question, so I looked at the 9-year average, and for all those buildings we talked about earlier, the 9-year average is just about 74,000.
Okay.
And then the last full year was 73,580. So we're right in that range by the looks of it, so.
Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
Marty gave me a heads up, so.
So, yeah, the other thing I should mention too is that, the agreement really is for the town to purchase the kilowatt hours that are produced and only the kilowatt hours that are produced. So if the system only produced 70,000 kilowatt hours in the year, the town would only be buying 70,000 in a year. And we use revenue grade metering to determine that kilowatt hour amount.
In winter and common season, does it get cleaned off, or we just take the hit at power at that time?
Yeah, you just take the hit, it's not really worth the effort to do that. And, we build that into the production estimate. So, if the panels aren't covered in snow, they will generate more power. But to pay a town employee to go out there and do that probably would negate any real electrical savings that you have. So it's probably not worth it.
I know there's some people in the room that have solar panels, but do they tend to clear off fairly quickly after storms?
They do, yeah. I mean, it depends, really. There's a few variables that would hold snow on an array, which primarily are wind, the amount of sunlight exposure, and the angle of the array. Those are probably the primary things that would keep the snow there or not. So if there's high wind exposure at the site, then it's more likely there won't be as much snow that holds to the array. If it's a steeper pitch, it's more likely that the snow will shed. And if it's fully in the sun with no, afternoon shade, things like that, it'll have a bigger chance of being able to heat up and let the snow go.
And did you folks cite at the transfer station, do you have any idea, and this could be Eric as well, to what those conditions are? Are we windy? Are we full day and afternoon sun?
It looks to me that the site that we're looking at is pretty much full exposure. It might have a little bit of afternoon. There's some trees that jog out, but that probably has to do with where we place it in that area, So it's got a good location. It's facing due south, and and it's close to the service, which is important.
Thank you.
Yeah. So basically, the price of electricity that we proposed here was just under 11 cents a kilowatt hour, 10.8 cents a kilowatt hour. The agreement, basically, for the first 6 years, we would fix the price of the energy to the 10.8 cents. And then starting in year 7, the price of energy will track the utility energy price less 12.5%. So it'll basically go up at that point if the general trend of electricity continues the way it has been. And the town would basically be paying more for the power at that point. So it's a natural point for the town to potentially plan on the purchase of the system. It's actually the fastest track for the town to be on to have the lowest amount of dollars spent on the ownership of the system is in that first year, as opposed to like if the town waited till year 7 or year 10 to make the purchase. So it'll be the fastest payoff to do it then. You know, in the 6 years up to that, the town could be setting money aside in anticipation of that. So that's one thing that some towns like to do.
From that chart, I see that year one looks like it produces 74,000 kilowatt hours, and then year 6, 72,000. Is that a natural attenuation of the ability of the solar array to generate electricity?
Yeah, so it'll degrade. It'll degrade over time. Yep. So the panel is warranted to put out 25% of its day one, or I'm sorry, 80% of its day one power rating in 25 years. So it basically will lose not quite a 0.5% per year. It'll actually lose a little more in the beginning, and then it'll taper back and slow down. And, you know, the panel life is really longer than 40 years. We kind of put like a 30-year economic model on most of the systems. But, you know, and if it's warranted for 25 years to produce 80%, it's not going to just stop in year 30, you know, it's going to keep going.
Just doesn't
So,
cut out, huh?
No. And now we have, you know, 50-plus years of panels generating to show that they continue to operate for a long time.
And we're going to assume in 25 years, there's a better technology.
Right.
So the next purchase would be even better.
Right, that's right. So basically, we would provide a main PE one-line diagram and also a wind load assessment. So we have proposed the ballast system, mostly due to the certainty of you know, controlling the installation, being able to have our lowest expense that way, without running into, you know, rocks and ledge and things that could be below the ground. That is another option, to go with a post mount system that's, you know, anchors that are actually in the ground versus the ballast. We've had a lot of success with the ballast, and you know, it's really kind of 6 in 1, half a dozen. The price is a little more with a post mount for us than with a ballast. We use a crushed rock foundation below the ballast block, and then we will put soil over the top of it and vegetate it so that it's all, you know, becomes integral to the ground, basically.
So that is a question I have about, you know, earthwork. If we did need to take out some trees to push things, geez, stop doing that. Bill's gonna get mad at me if I keep hitting the mic. I should not wave my hands. So if we did have to do some earthwork, you would probably take care of the basic prep and finishing, but if we had something heavier, like having to take out a couple of trees and level the back 40 feet of the array, something like that, we would be expected to take that on as the municipality.
Yeah, I think that's probably a better way to do it, just because, you know, you guys have the equipment and the labor to do that and wouldn't need to be paying us to do that, you know, or essentially adding that to the expense of the system.
Okay, so but the bedding and any all that would be part of the project cost?
Right,
Yeah,
yep,
okay.
that's an
All right.
expense that the town can plan on. If there's trees to be cut, which, without being totally present to the site, I think what I remember was there's maybe some trees on the east side.
Yeah, there's
Or
some
the-
scrubby
or the west
brush
side,
and
actually.
small stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure there's any full-size trees that would need to come down, but there's some work.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I just clarify with you, Eric? When we talk about at the transfer station, where exactly for this at the transfer station? Is it all the same place, or are they different than the other one?
Well, so basically, the easiest way to think about it is when you come in, right before you turn right to go down around the loop, you look to your left where there's actually the exit lane.
Where we cut that wood?
Right where the wood pile is, yeah.
Okay,
So it
yeah.
would be out behind, basically, that and behind the brown organics pile.
Right, okay.
So that area, there's probably 40, 60 feet of grass there, plus then you get into some scrubby stuff
Yeah.
that could be cut and pushed back. to give a little bit more room to not impact the current uses that are happening at the site. We might need to wiggle those piles forward 20 feet or something, to make room, but.
But that's it, that
That
general
right in that
vicinity.
corner, looking, basically, you're looking right towards the whole, that wide open grassy area in the middle, all the buildings. It's actually quite a nice, wide view from that corner.
Great.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure.
Yep.
For some reason, we had talked about having it be behind there, at some point, were we talking about,
Behind,
I don't know, there were, anyway, I know exactly what you're talking about, thank you.
Okay,
Sure.
I just want to double check and clarify. So if I'm leaving the transfer station and I see the compost over here, it's beyond the compost?
yeah, beyond and back. So first you come up to the compost pile and then the wood, Bill, I'm really sorry. And then the pile of chopped wood.
Yes.
And so it, kind of behind those two things
Okay.
off, kind of as you head up towards the hill, towards the bus garage, would be one way
Yeah.
to look at it.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yes.
Just a quick question. So, if I understand right, for the first 6 years, you folks still own the system. So, global warming being what it is or whatever, say year 4, big hurricane hits, unusual, but kind of like knocks them all down. Is it your responsibility then to repair the system
It would be,
and put it
yeah.
back to rights?
Yep, and that's
But after
written
year
into
7,
the
if we
agreement.
buy the system, then it's on us.
Right, yep,
And so presumably the town would increase their insurance policy or something.
that's right,
To
yep,
insure that system.
right. That's exactly it, yep.
Is any of that cost, I'm sure your cost is already figured into that. Eric, is any of that figured in on our end?
Well, I mean, honestly, we haven't looked at year 7 plus options really for either one of these. Of course, we would have to look, if and when we decided to make a purchasing decision, we would have to look at that as a included cost. But right now, we haven't looked that far out.
The purchasing decision, and of course, I'm talking for select boards that probably won't contain any of us as members.
You're not going to be here in 6 years?
No, I don't plan to.
Anyone in the audience?
Dennis might be here.
Let me just make my point really quickly.
Yes.
The point is, we'll have to do a return on investment at that point, and we should be looking at that in advance if we want to save towards it, obviously. The other factor that would come into play is the knowledge that it's always 12.5% less than our cost. Is that correct on the electricity?
What's that?
The electricity itself is 12.5% less than the utility rate.
Yes, yep,
So it's always a guaranteed lower cost.
right,
But the idea is if we purchase, we may be fixing ourselves closer to that 10.8, even though it's 15 or something, or 20
Right.
something. So that's why we would seek perhaps to purchase, to fix our costs out there for a long, long time.
yeah, I mean, it's essentially free, right? After you, if, let's say you purchased in year 7, well, it would take probably 6 or 7 years to pay that down through the generation, and then from there until the system's dead, it's free electricity.
So you have here the installation cost is $126,858. In year 7, we could buy it for $60,890.
Yeah, so that's an estimated fair market value price. It's basically, pretty much based on what we still owe in debt on the project and what's needed to relieve ourselves of the debt and close the project out financially.
And we exercise that option.
Yeah.
Would would there be service required yearly that you'd have to include, you'd have to pay for after years?
Yep, so, and we offer, an ongoing annual service agreement. So, the town could basically get into an agreement with us where we just come out and service it every year, which would, essentially be a lower price than if, something happened and we had to spend 30 hours, looking at it. It's a lower annual price that way. And, it's kind of like doing an oil change. Stay on top of any problems before they really happen.
So would a service agreement include
above and beyond just maintenance?
Well, I mean, yes, and we would repair anything that we found that was broken. You know, and the manufacturer warranties are all for pretty long time frames. The inverter comes with like a 12-year, and then you can extend it out to 25 years for an extra fee. The optimizers are a 25-year warranty behind those. The panels typically have a 12-year manufacturer and a 25-year power production warranty that we talked about, the 80% in 25 years. The mounting system's got a 20-year manufacturer warranty. So, you know, most of anything that would fail would be covered. If there was labor involved, you know, that's where, you know, there could be some expense. You know, if there was a major failure and we needed to spend a bunch of time to replace that. And the labor, or the annual inspection agreement basically covers a list of things that we're looking for, you know, that are, you know, obvious problems that could occur that we're, you know, staying in front of, is the idea there.
How are we doing on the timing of your presentation, saying 20
Well, we're at
more minutes or so?
5:03 right now, so.
Yep.
Yeah, so I'm good. I, you know, really want to just answer questions for
Good,
anybody,
good.
so.
I want to make sure you make your points that need to be made
Yeah.
in terms of.
Can you
Yeah,
scroll ahead to the screen with the spreadsheet on it?
sure.
Just because I can look at it, but others have not seen it. in the
Yeah,
audience
no,
yet.
that's good. So these are just some of our qualifications, some of our team players. A couple references from different towns we've done projects like this in.
How big some of the, when looking at those pictures, how big would ours be?
So yours is 61.8, and the picture of this ground mount here is 111 point something, and this one's 100, just over 100 kW, and the one before that was in the 30 kW range. And the town of Bristol has one just about the same size as you guys. I think theirs might actually be a little bit larger, roughly the same
Can you
size.
scroll back, sorry, to the, I'm sorry for interrupting.
No,
but
no, that's okay.
To the one that you said was 30, is that the Stockton?
Yeah,
Springs?
Stockton Springs, yeah.
So ours would be about twice that size?
Yeah, exactly, yep. But on a ground mount, that would look more like this.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
So why is it a ground mount instead of a roof mount?
I think because there really wasn't a lot of good roof space to put the array on. Yeah, I think that's the primary reason.
Another problem that I have heard with roof mount is eventually your roof has to be replaced or repaired. And when that happens, the solar has to come off to do that. So
Right.
there's an added expense then when your roof needs maintenance.
I wouldn't forecast anything particular at the transfer station, but I would feel uneasy about using that particular roof.
I wouldn't even think about it.
And the other roofs we looked at in town were just either, just not big enough, this building, for example, or whatever.
But don't roof mounts tend to clean themselves off faster?
Not necessarily. We can still get the same pitch. You know, we'd be installing a 35-degree pitch most likely, and that's really a pretty good medium for, you know, your best production angle, yet still steep enough to shed snow.
So are these things at all scalable? I mean, can you like?
Yes,
it-
depending
it
on
always
how
seems to be
big the
insatiable
service
use of
is.
energy, so
Yeah.
it's gonna grow.
Right.
And so can you like tack on a few more panels?
You could. You know, it's really limited by the service at the property, you know, is the limitation of the array size. And then, you know, from there, it's upsizing the service to the utility grid to get more power out.
Yeah, and my hope through some conservation and lighting and some other plans that we are looking at is to probably consume a little bit less electricity for the long haul.
So could you slide to the spreadsheet so people can look at that? I know we
Sure.
all interrupted you.
It's okay,
not
don't
your
worry about
fault.
it. No, it's good.
There it is.
Right here. It's a little, I don't know, I could try to zoom in on a section. Yeah, so this is essentially showing, you know, all the numbers. Showing the bottom, very bottom right column is the projected savings over 30 years. 226,000, which accounts for the purchase.
So the purchase is included in that?
Yes. Yep.
In year 7. So for those of you who can't really see this, the green on the rightmost column is the time that we are in the PPA agreement. And when Sundog would own the system, and then the yellow in this pattern is when we would own the system.
It's one option for you to own.
Right, it's one of the options being presented there. But the thing that we're looking at as a select board is trying to equalize the cost over the long term, so that this isn't going to be something that's going to spike up and down over time. Because we can take, what we're looking at is taking our expense and making it very even across a broad number of years.
Yes.
So on the spreadsheet, the second column shows annual generation. That's what the system will produce. What are the assumptions in this of what the town will be consuming?
The same as what they're consuming now, the 74,000.
Does that hold steady?
So this will reduce, if the town continues to consume the same exact amount, you know, the percentage that this will cover will reduce over time. Maybe the town will reduce its load a little bit, so that'll go, you know, with production loss.
And so all these electrons go into the grid, and if we're in net surplus production, we get paid, but if we're in net deficit production, we owe money to the utility or to PPL.
Yeah, so basically, the electrons at the transfer station would feed the load there first, then directly, yep.
Not through the grid.
It is just mimicking the electrical characteristic of the grid, but no, the power is coming from the inverters itself. But, yeah, the rest of the power would get exported, and then you would get a credit, and that credit would be allocated to the other accounts under the system generation meter. And then, and essentially, if you produced more than you consumed in a year, then you would lose those credits. And they're never going to write a check to the town. It's only going to be a credit.
So it's like the net metering system that prevails in the individual.
Yeah, same exact thing, exactly. Yep, same thing.
And so, future years, as we're getting down into year 30, if we're only generating 63,000, these are kilowatt hours, correct?
Yep.
Okay, and we're still using 74,000, then we're gonna be buying 11,000 off of the grid at the current market price, not
That's
at any
right.
reduction price.
That's right, yep.
Okay.
Well, could say that the degradation over time equals another panel or two. Could someone compensate that by buying a couple of panels and having them installed?
Yeah, you could add some panels, yep. That's a possibility.
So if we found ourselves really short, we could boost our system.
Yeah,
Is-
yeah.
Subject to the limitations that you mentioned earlier, which
Yeah,
is
we can't.
the system, the service system at the site.
Right.
Is the inverter oversized at all?
The inverter actually is oversized. I think I said one inverter, but we're actually planning for 2 inverters here. So yeah, the inverter is oversized for the system. So it could have more power behind it pretty easily. You can also oversize the array by, you know, easily 25% is an acceptable number, and actually these inverters can go up to like 50% DC overage. So.
That would make a different price.
No, nope. Well, possibly, you know, if we were able to eliminate an inverter, then you can save some money that way. or, you know, the system would be a lower expense that way. But it's pretty minimal with these numbers that we're looking at, so.
I have a couple of questions about the legal and financial structure of this arrangement.
Mhm.
I think you said that a separate entity is formed, that
Mhm.
it's separate from town of Reedfield and it's separate from Sundog.
Mhm.
Now, who stands behind, and that would be the limited liability corporation, who stands behind that?
I do as one of the business owners and my partner, and then our investment partners.
And if we were interested, would you provide your company's financials?
Well, I don't know, because all of the information that I provide to the town is public information, right?
There might be exceptions for business. I think that there's a possibility that we
I'd be happy
we
to
could
share
work on
financials
something, yeah.
with the town, but not with, you know, the general public.
Yeah, I'll look into that. I think that there's a provision for things like this, where trade secrets, whatever, if it's beneficial to us to understand some basic financial structures that we can. But I will make sure that's the case,
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
And does the LLC provide insurance for the whole project?
Yes.
Property, you know, to secure the asset and also any liabilities?
That's right, yeah.
You know, would you name the town as an additional insured on the liability policy?
We could do that, yes. Yep, absolutely. That wouldn't be a problem.
And I assume that we would be, have information available about the nature of the contract between, say, PPA and its investor as well, and their contract with CMP?
Yeah, not really, like, we don't, our investor kind of is, you know, more or less not involved with the management side of the project. That's really who we are in the deal. So, no, there's not a lot of information about an investor.
It's a Sundog.
But the contract is, you know, we'll give the contract to the town, and, you know, as one of the owners of the special purpose entity that we create, you know, we can represent the contract and pretty much everything in it.
Sundog has some sort of contract with CMP?
Nope, the town does. Yep. That'd be the net energy billing agreement.
This is where we got a little sidetracked a year ago.
Yeah.
With this project, because we didn't understand this whole business arrangement. And I think the way I have it, I might be oversimplifying, so please correct me. But basically, the company that's going to finance this, could be made up of people in this room. They're investors, and they're doing this because it's how they're going to choose to invest their money and make a profit. And the way they do that is that they're buying the system and they're receiving the credits from the government. And so that's how it gets reduced in cost, because a government entity isn't allowed to do that. But we are allowed by law to purchase through another party to do that. And so that's how they can pay for this, make some money themselves. And then it's how Sundog isn't the one who's financing all these solar systems, because that would be ridiculously expensive. So you're the intermediary between the financing and the user. Is
That's
that
right.
pretty close?
Yeah, pretty close.
And the
Okay.
and the service provider?
Yes,
We
and
are
the
the
service
service provider.
And ultimately, it's the investors who will make their primary return through the renewable energy credits into the marketplace, and we are benefiting by some discounted the actual purchase price.
Right. Because if you were purchasing as a homeowner, you would be getting all of that yourself, but you'd also be paying for it up front. So.
Yep.
And then.
Yeah, it's a win-win, you know, it's really, it's a model that it allows for the town to have the same ownership timeframe as an individual or business.
So there's relative certainty with the 12% if you owned it right for the 25 years, if we bought it at 6, then it could vary wildly, am I right on that? It could vary depending on what CMP is paying for purchase, power now. All of a sudden, we're not locked in. They can say, you're gonna, well, I can say, they can say, you're gonna have to buy it at the same rate we buy, that ISO buys electricity from the wholesalers.
Only if the state policy goes to the wastebasket completely, I mean, the town's agreement with Central Maine Power is decoupled from the town's agreement with, Reedfield Solar LLC, It's a different agreement. So the net energy billing agreement is one agreement that the town has with Central Maine Power, which is to get an equal exchange of kilowatt hours. And with Sundog, it's an actual agreement to purchase the power. So the exchange of kilowatt hours with CMP is for a almost equal rate. It's the compensation level is devalued by CMP on the delivery side of it by this year 20% on the delivery side, which is equivalent of roughly 10% of the total amount of the cost of a kilowatt hour. So, and that's what I was saying with the policy that could change very soon, where the full credit value will be available, which it likely is. There's a bill that's sitting in the Senate right now. We move forward. It did change? Oh. Oh, nice, okay. Last Thursday? Good to know. Right on, thanks. So that's good news, yeah. So I don't know when it's going to be enacted, maybe 30 or 60 days, something like that.
That's what we're expecting.
Yeah, so,
The governor hasn't signed it yet, but both House and Senate signed
yep, good, cool. So, yeah, so there we go. So it's, pretty safe to say that the town will get the full credit value. Yeah.
Is the cost of this, if we do not buy this system until, we have to buy it at 25 years or 30 years?
Nope, you have an opportunity to extend it at that point. So there's two you can extend the agreement. So if you want to just keep buying power at a lower rate, just extend the agreement. And then I think after 30 years, we would either pull the system out at that point because it's not really financially worth having it there anymore, put something else in place that maybe would be, generating more power for the town at that point. And or, you guys would essentially buy it at that point for, fair market value, which would be like probably not worth very much. So.
Okay, so that brings up two other questions I have, So we need to be saving to replace this, is one question, but don't answer that yet. And the other is about service agreements. If we don't purchase the system, do we have to buy a service agreement, or is that in the price already?
Yeah, that's already in it. So we would just maintain and service and make sure it continues to generate power.
Okay, so
Yeah, all
if
the
we
time.
do purchase at the end of year 6, in year 7, do you have an idea of an array of this size, what the annual service agreement would be?
It would be, in the hundreds, but below $1,000 a year for sure. It'd be probably like around $500 a year, something like that.
Okay, and has that been factored into the spreadsheet?
I do not think we factored that number in here, no.
Okay, so,
Nope.
And it's not in the purchase price, so the service is not prepaid in the purchase.
No, that is. So inside of the purchase price, inside of the power purchase agreement, we would service the system for free. So we would just do that every year if there's any problems. It's in our benefit to make sure the system is running because it's producing power and we can then sell the power. But if the town purchases the system, then at that point, we no longer own it, the town owns it, and the town can opt into an annual agreement where we would come and basically service it every year.
okay, and then, thank you, that was very informative.
Sure.
And then, if we're looking at an overall savings of $226,000 in the lower right corner in blue, I'm assuming at that point, based on what you just said, the system is kind of worthless. It's not producing at a very high percentage of its possible output.
Yep.
So we would probably want to replace
I mean, it's still producing, only 11,000 kilowatt hours less than year one.
Okay, but you did say that if we didn't purchase it, you probably wouldn't keep it in place because it wouldn't be making enough really for you to keep making money.
I mean, it might. I don't actually know. I haven't gotten 30 years down the road yet, so I don't know. But,
All right, so we're all talking
but I mean, if
way
it's
out
still
there.
generating 63,000 kilowatt hours a year and the town wants to continue to buy power, I don't see necessarily why we would not opt into continuing that.
Okay,
We're talking about writing on your check 2049, if there are checks existing at that point in time.
Yeah.
So I think we're really getting way out there.
right, but so
But
at
the-
some
Pretty far
point,
down the
we'll
road, for
probably want to
sure.
be saving money again to replace the system because we know that we have to replace all things that we purchase.
Right.
Vehicles,
would you-
buildings, et cetera.
Would you do another 6-year thing, use it for 6 years, or would you buy a system outright?
Well, I would think the environment for regulation would be changed by then, the
Yeah,
incentive
right.
system would be changed by then, the cost of the components would have changed. I think we're,
Way ahead.
way ahead.
Who knows,
Yeah.
exactly. It's,
Yep.
yeah.
But at
hard
some
to
point,
say.
I mean, if we're looking at an agreement, or purchasing something of this amount that's gonna last for 30 years, I think we also have to be realistic about what are we gonna do at the end of 30 years, so that's.
Yeah, I
We don't
mean,
have
even
anything
if,
set in
let's
stone.
say you don't want to buy another solar system and you've purchased the system, well, you also have an expense to remove the system. So that's another thing to think about.
Okay. John?
The LLC, during the PPA, the LLC would be sending a bill monthly,
Quarterly,
quarterly.
yeah.
Is that billed as the power is produced or after it's consumed by the town?
Well, it's mostly, we're looking at production only. So, we would be basing the number that we're the amount of kilowatt hours that we're billing for on the amount of production that it did, likely up to the day before the bill went out.
So if it produces power but the town ultimately doesn't use it, they bought it.
Well, yeah, but, they've also gotten a credit within their bank with Central Maine Power, right? So, for instance, let's say in the summertime, the town generates twice as much power within those months that they consume. Well, they have prepaid, essentially, for some power that is going to then be credited through the bank to the different meters over the course of the fall and winter. For free, right?
But can they get 12 months to use it?
Right,
But if they don't use it,
then it goes away. That's right.
costs them.
Yep, that's right.
And the 10.8 cents per kilowatt hour they pay for.
The town, that's right. Yep, if the town bought 74,000 kilowatt hours but only used 70, they've bought 4,000 that they didn't use. They spent the money on it.
So that we do manage time appropriately for the next presentation and everything.
Yes.
We'll let you wrap up.
Yep.
I would say that if we have questions, particularly from members of committees who are involved in this, to please give those to Eric in writing if you can, by email, because we'll want to make sure to follow up on particular technical questions or legal concerns or whatever. So
Sure,
go
absolutely.
ahead and why don't you wrap up?
Okay, well,
And
thank you all for the questions and for listening and for the interest. I really appreciate it. And anything that, you think of, feel free to reach out to me or to our office. Pretty easy to find, Sundog Solar. So, thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I want to stick around here so I can hear Kurt.
Okay, great.
It's only fair,
Can we do
right?
Can we do a 30-second stretch and pee?
I've had a request for a 1-minute stretch break, so let's do that. Thank you. We're back talking with solar presentations. We have Revision Energy here, and Revision has been in front of us originally with a proposal, and I will just simply turn it over to Kurt Penny, and you're with Revision, so the floor is yours. And how are you? Are you comfortable working in the same fashion, just taking questions from the floor as we go along?
I am.
Okay, great.
I am not going to bore this crowd with the same exact details and same exact questions that say, we
Right.
too are proposing a power purchase agreement. You know, the details are very similar. There's not some secret sauce or anything in the conversation. So perhaps what I'll really concentrate on here is who we are. That really tends to differentiate. You know, modules in a field or modules on a roof really these days are not that complex. It's pretty, I don't want to say simple, but it's pretty simple to actually find an electrician who can put panels on a roof or put panels in the ground, and it works. The technology works. It's simple. The difference is we're talking about 20 years, 25 years, 30 years. And what we're really talking about is a mission from the town, and in our particular case, a mission for the company. We are a certified B Corporation. That simply means that this is a company with value. We are a company that has a mission to, as we see here, to accelerate and lead the transition to a clean, renewable energy economy in northern New England. This really is at the heart of everything we do as we look at not just photovoltaics. We spent the first 6 or 7 years of our company's existence doing solar thermal hot water systems, because at the time it was the most efficient and effective way to utilize renewable energy. But things change. We expect things to change. And as they change, we look towards other solutions. So rooftop and ground mount solar are obvious. These are products that we thrive installing. We are rated the #1 solar installer for rooftops in New England. So it is something we take great pride in. We have a full staff of engineers. We have project managers. We have sales, marketing, financials. We now embrace air source heat pumps, EV chargers, electric vehicle chargers, and LED technology as well. So these are a suite of the products that we offer currently. We have developed a tremendous amount of power purchase agreements over the course of the last 15 years. This is just to show you, not to brag, but to basically say that we do indeed know what we're doing. We have the power and we have the relationships to drive these types of complex financial deals. It's over 100 solar arrays throughout New Hampshire, Maine, and Massachusetts, more than 7 megawatts and more than $25 million worth of solar PPAs on our books currently. We have 60 that we own ourselves, almost 12 million within our own Revision books. These are just some quick overviews. We did not show all of them. What we tried to do was start at the very top with the ridiculous a megawatt in South Portland, and then really try to hone in on the projects that fit more along the lines what we're looking for here. So as you can see, where we've done business, projects as small as 41 kilowatts, and of course, projects well over a megawatt. Lots of power purchase agreements for nonprofits, as you can see. Again, these are some of the smaller ones we've done, lots of summer camps, food pantries, and churches, et cetera, et cetera. And then finally, one of our primary goals is to work on power purchase agreements for schools. So here you can see an outline of several of the schools we've done. Again, some of them very small and some of them pretty substantial. This slide always gets me, but listening to some of the questions, it's a confusing concept, really understanding what's going on here. So we like to install or put this, insert this slide in here at this point, just because we all want to understand what's going on. Danny was clear when he said that the sun would hit the modules, would create power and go behind the meter. So in other words, we're going behind the meter and utilizing power at the waste transfer station, as far as I understand. And then net meter the remaining balance off to the other meters. So in this case, the sun hits the modules, the solar inverter converts the DC power from the modules into AC, and then finally the excess power is sent to the grid, and that's how solar in Maine works. This we've also been through, so I'm just going to kind of run through this. The reality here is that there are benefits for for-profit institutions, or the investor, as we talked about. That includes the 30% investment tax credit and single-year, first-year bonus depreciation. We're allowed to depreciate the asset in the first year. Combined, that's almost 55% of incentives for the actual for-profit institutional owner. Problem is, of course, municipals can't take advantage of that. Therefore, if you just wrote a check, regardless of who you wrote the check to, you wrote a check, we'd be looking at a pretty substantial payback, 15 to 20 years at best, with some of, depending on our modeling of the future of power costs. But it's a long payback, and it's difficult to make that work for towns. So this is where the power purchase agreement comes in. The power purchase agreement allows the for-profit institution or company, LLC as you were, to own the power, to own the system, to maintain the system, and simply sell the power equivalent back to the town. Any questions? We're all together on what a PPA is and how that works, and it's great. I'm not going to read this, I promise, but you get the idea. The financing partner working with the nonprofit. So we have the financing partner with the special purpose is the new LLC created. Again, doesn't matter which company does it, but it's Reedfield LLC Solar or Solar LLC. And then, of course, that PPA is between the special purpose entity and the host, you guys. Okay? That's usually a 45-minute slide, so look at us, right? We're cranking now, that's great.
We just did that.
Yeah, we just did, that's exactly right. Thank you, Danny, appreciate that, man. So, this is really high finance here, so try to stay with me here. This basically shows the two options, and the green is the purchase. So you pay for the project, and over time you break even at around year 15, and over the course of 40 years. By the way, we model 40 years. So we don't want you to throw the system away in 30 years, neither does Danny. But it's really the design life of a solar system should be 40 years. So the financial life is a different conversation, but the true design life can be up to 40 years. So here, the green is you write us a check, you write Sundog a check, you write somebody a check. They put the system in the ground, and long-term, we see a 15-year payback, and then we start to see benefits. What are we counting on? What's not in this is the value of the power, right? We've made some assumptions. We all have made some assumptions that over the course of time, the value of the power goes up, right? How many people here own their own home? Show of hands. Yep. How many have an adjustable rate mortgage? No, an adjustable rate. Come on, everybody has an adjustable rate. Who has a fixed rate mortgage? So what are we really talking about? We're talking about a rate, a power purchase rate that is designed to go up on an annualized basis. Right? The long-term curve of this is making some assumptions that the value of the power in later years is going to be tremendously more than it is today.
Okay.
That's what we're assuming. We're assuming that what we've had in the past is going to follow, the trend will continue,
Right.
and we're using historical energy rates to model a 2.5% annual increase in the cost of energy. Right? That's great, except, of course, when you look to see what that means in year 25. What we're doing is we're saying we're going to guess that the town is going to be paying X amount for solar power, and that's going to be less because of this increase. What Sundog presented was actually very clear in the sense that it's always below. Now that means you could be paying more, right? We still expect the trend of power costs to go up, but what you'll be doing is you'll be paying less than that CMP rate. So while we don't enjoy the steady pace, that mortgage locking in your rate for 30 years or 15 years or whatever the case may be, we know that we've got a discount. So that's certainly a way, and as Danny said, there are many different choices. There's more than chocolate and vanilla here. One of the things that I've heard sitting in the back is the hope to lock in rates over the long term. And what I'm seeing is for municipalities is the idea that this ongoing energy escalation is just that. It's kind of a risk. We're running a risk that these numbers will continue for the long term. And so as we model this, and you can see the parallel nature here, the reality is no one can tell me what the CMP value for a kilowatt hour is going to be in 2037. Nobody can. The beauty of solar power is that we can tell you what the value of a kilowatt hour is generated from solar power in 25 years. That's the difference. There is security in knowing what the cost of the PPA is really going to be. That takes away any of the complexities and changing environments and new technologies and everything else. As they talk about disbanding CMP and making it a municipal electric company, now it's a state. All of these changes are very frightening when investing in a technology like this. This is just happening today. What's it going to look like in 10 years or 20 years? And what we're both trying to do, why we think this makes sense, is that no matter how you slice it, whether you buy the system after year 6, whether you have a long-term PPA, whether you have an adjustable PPA rate, or even pay a slight premium for a fixed rate agreement for 25, 30, or 35 years. Either way will work, and either one of those ways will help to alleviate some of the differences that are going to happen in the energy prices going forward.
Can I ask you a question?
Of course.
Yeah. Okay, so the 2.5% escalator on the CMP cost, that's your best estimate. Now, the PPA escalator is 2%.
Correct.
Is that a guarantee? Is that a fixed 2%?
It is. The way that we've designed. Now, this is, one of the reasons that we're having this conversation is the way that we've designed these power purchase agreements. The way the state of Maine has been allowing us to build solar has greatly changed. Just changed today. Right? Today. Okay, we have full net metering credits. Yay! So it's fluid, quite frankly. And what we're seeing is this presentation, what you're looking at, sir, is actually old, because there have been changes. There have been changes to module prices, tariffs on modules, changes in policy, changes in bank regulations. Next year, we lose 4% on the investment tax credit. So there are many different ways to go. And as a person who's meeting you for the first time, what I'm trying to say is it's time to make that decision. It's time to wrap your head around which of these flavors fit the best and get into the next phase. So again, whoever you choose to work with, the next phase is critical. The next phase is interconnection applications and permitting. And really the final design, I can see it on Danny's presentation, things are moving so fast we don't know. Are you going to do this today, next week, next month, 3 months from now, 6 months from now? Is weather going to be an issue if we pull the trigger on this and sign a PPA agreement in November? You better believe it is. And how do we finish that if we sign the contract in November and we can't start till next year, and now we're losing investment tax credit? That investor, that impact investor, that LLC is now going to be negatively affected. And again, that's not competitive conversation, that's environmental. That's what we deal with on a daily basis. So in essence, the reality here is that there are several ways to skin the proverbial cat. Unquestionably, if you have the ability to purchase the system, one way or the other, that seems to be the most profitable way, right? That's going to give you the best payback, with a big giant asterisk next to that, right? As long as things continue to go the way that we say they're going to go for the next 25 years. Right? We put up a number, you're going to save 300 grand. That's because we expect the cost of energy to be 20 cents. Right? I don't know if it's going to be 20 cents.
If it went down to 5 cents, we lose money.
Correct.
So we all know that's not going to happen.
Well, we do, which is why we have 100 PPAs out there. Because we do not, in all seriousness, we do not expect energy prices to go down. We're looking at trends. It's not just, because of solar or wind. It's because of the way the world is working. No new nuclear plants, shutting down coal plants, renewable energy is coming online. This is a new paradigm that we're working within here. But what we do know is that owning the system is going to kind of give you the most control. The question really is, how much control does the town really want? Do you guys really want to own a solar system? Now, I know it looks great on a graph. You save the most. You get, buy it 50 off. It's what a great deal. You get the thing 50 off after 6 years. It's a great deal. But again, now comes the operations and maintenance side. Now comes the risk. Right? How many of us who own a home and the hot water heater broke or whatever? I mean, when that happens, what happens? We don't call the bank and say the hot water heater broke. We fix it. We go to our bank, we take out money, we fix it. In this case, this is what the town has. The town has a machine that nobody knows how to run. Right? We're very comfortable. Sundog's very comfortable around these machines. Nobody else is. We don't want anyone in there shoveling a high voltage module. We don't. We don't want steam cleaners or Windex cleaning or any other kind of messing around with solar equipment. So what does it really mean? It really means, the decision is up to the committee. The decision really comes down to, what are we doing as a town? Are we in the solar business? Are we in the electricity business? Do we want to monitor this? Do we want to, somebody here is going to watch it and call somebody when it breaks? Or do you want to pay the premium to have somebody like us watch it on a daily basis, provide ongoing reports, et cetera, et cetera? It gets expensive. You look at a 20-year model like that, and you recognize without O&M involved, there's no inverter. I'm not going to go through and show ours and try to point the differences, but we anticipate an inverter replacement within the first 20 years. Yes, it can be warranted, but it's most likely will last about 20 years. So you want to take that into effect. If you're really thinking of owning the system and having it sitting out there, it's not a set it and forget it. It's not a toaster, right? It requires ongoing operations and maintenance. It requires watching. It is as you can see, $150,000 installation. If you bought a new fire truck, whatever, you'd make sure to wash it. You'd make sure to maintain it. So in this case, what I'm saying is, don't just look at the bottom line. Look at who you're purchasing this from, and then look at what are the real goals of the committee. What are the real goals of the town? If it meant paying a slight premium today, let's just say a penny more, then all of a sudden, the town is in going crazy because we're paying a slight premium today for a fixed rate over 30 years. Is that a good way to approach a system like this with no operations and maintenance, guaranteed production on an annualized basis, and a fixed flat rate for 25 to 35 years? I would venture to say no investment on the part of the town, no out-of-pocket, no savings, virtually no risk. If the system breaks and fails, guess who doesn't get paid? The LLC. The LLC. Yes, it's unfortunate that you have to go back to doing what you've been doing for the last 150 years, right? Buying power from the grid. But the truth of the matter here is, what are we really trying to do? We're in the solar business. Sundog's in the solar business. We do this every day. We watch this every day. But what happens is we consistently see people who then own a system and really are not capable of managing the system. So I would, and when I say managing, I mean in all respects. Really, we'd like to make this as simple as changing your cell phone provider. We'd like to make it as simple as going in and saying, I'd like to switch from AT&T to Verizon. Paperwork is done. It's over. We're CMP versus Revision Energy. And that's all it is changing who you write your electric bill to. And it's as simple as that, with no out-of-pocket and no ongoing risk. That's what my thinking is. Yes?
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the legislation that has passed the Senate and the House and is going to the governor, and bring that back to us?
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm assuming that you have legislative monitors or lobbyists or whatever. Is there something else sitting out there that you're following that would be advantageous for us or disadvantage?
In this case, I don't have we have lobbyists. Sundog is active as well. We have our fingers on the pulse, but there's nothing that I have up my sleeve to say, you know what, you should wait, or you should, do it now or you lose, or this or that. I don't have an arm twist in terms of what's coming forward. What I do have is this particular bill that was passed is getting rid of all gross metering. So there is no longer, I think you've probably read where they said it's as if you grow a tomato in your own garden,
Yeah.
and you have to go to Hannaford and pay them for growing that tomato in your garden, right? That's what gross metering really was, and that's gone. And that had been vetoed, as we all know, for the last 5 years in a row. So here is an overwhelming opportunity to see a bill swinging in our direction for once, certainly in 8 years. So what I can say is, what we do know is we know legislatively that we're not looking to walk into a buzzsaw. So what we're modeling and what Danny's modeling, we're modeling what we know, what we know today. We think that it may get even better going forward. We do not expect a windfall of cash. That is not the way that solar policy is going. So really, in essence, what the solar industry is looking for is for government, in essence, to give us net metering and stay out of the way. So I think there may be some pilot projects, there are some pilot EV charging station projects that are going on and to be announced as part of the Volkswagen settlement, et cetera, et cetera. But from a solar perspective, there may be some RFPs for large commercial or small commercial, some things like that. But generally speaking, I think now with the 100% net metering, I think we are where we are going to be for the time being.
Thank you.
Sure. Let me just see, let me run through, this again is what when I say no matter what you do, here this gray bar at 24 cents per kilowatt hour represents that 2.5% escalator over 40 years, right? So if we start at today's value and go 40 years out at 2.5% a year, we're at 24 cents for the kilowatt hour. It's less than half of what we pay today. It's not like crazy, but who knows? So now we look and we say, okay, here's the utility. If we just work on solar and we use a power purchase agreement with a year 6 buyout like Danny showed, it gives us our best cost, right? A leveled cost over 40 years of under 7 cents. If we let our term PPA ride out, the way it's scheduled, the way we have it designed, it's a leveled cost of 12 cents over 40 years. And if you purchase the system from the very get-go, write a check, you're at 7.5. So this kind of gives you an overview. The 3 solar choices on the left all look better than what we have today. And of course, the red line is the value of today's power, and that's just sitting there, right? So if it just stays steady, that's still going to be a positive trend for solar. We know all this. We've talked about that. So that it's a hedge, which we've talked about. Here are just some nice photos of the work we've done. Some rooftop to give you an idea of rooftop. Another flat rooftop. This is the town of Camden. Similar. We actually don't use ballast blocks for our ground mounts. We have a hammer, and we actually do our own pilot holes and pilot drilling for ground mounts.
So for sense of scale,
Yeah.
we're about 3/4 that size.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, actually, less
Or
than
about
3/4.
half.
Yeah,
About
about
half.
half.
About half. Yep.
A little over half, yeah.
And that's a good picture of snow on the ground, not on the array.
That's right. Danny's 100% right. At a 35-degree tilt or so, if we get 2 feet of snow, it'll be a couple of days that the panels will be covered in snow while they still melt, and then they'll fall off. But both of us are modeling in the same way. We recognize that we're not going to see an abundance of production from November all the way through February, but you walk out on a day like today and you feel that sun, and even though it's cold, it's really productive in the cold. So we had a ribbon cutting for a 600 kilowatt system in Limestone, Maine, and I was up there last week. And there was so much snow that the panels, when they sloughed the snow stayed at the bottom of the panels. So which was about a 4 feet leading edge in the front. So you can imagine the kind of snow. And yet, the production that we were getting, the types of modules that we use, the production we were getting is exceeding what we actually modeled. So even with a monumental snow up there, it's still productive. Not as productive as it could be, but more productive than we modeled. So, pretty cool. Here's this is about a third. This is for the Wells Sanitary District. You can see that the modules we're using here, they're split. So you can see not only are they on a portrait, but they're split in half. So what that really means is that bottom edge, it's almost like 4 separate panels if you look. So that bottom edge, when it was covered in snow, is actually not producing, but the other 3 are. So it really does allow for some pretty substantial snow events and work our way through it. There's another one. Here's landfill. Now this is where the ballast comes in, where you can't penetrate. So in a capped landfill, you can't pile drive. So this is where you would use a ballast block. And then we like this because we like it was one of our very first power purchase agreements, and basically the idea was, what are we going to do with the money we do save? What will the town do with the money they save on electricity over the next 40 years? And it's just kind of nice to be able to, after getting all of this details work through your head, it's kind of nice to finally say, if we can make a decision here that's going to help economically, environmentally, and even educationally for the town of Reedfield. So.
Environmentally, that brings up a question. Do you want to go first?
That was the easy one. What size installation is this going to be?
We had modeled, and again, we had modeled a 53 kilowatt system, so a little bit less. So we weren't quite as aggressive in terms of what our production numbers are. We didn't get to 100% of the demand for the town, but we're at about 90%.
And what cost?
We are. Let me see. I actually have the. Whoops. That's going to be tricky. What cost? Our original modeled cost was let's see, 53 kilowatts and $149,000. But of course, this is well over a year old at this point, so we have not updated the model. We're not necessarily competing at this point. We're really just kind of presenting. So we can certainly work on that cost.
I probably won't make many friends in the room, so I won't make a comment. I'll just ask the question, I hope. What is the net effect to the environment on solar? So we're using what type of materials to make the solar, and what effect does that have on the environment? And then when this is all done, regardless of who owns the system at that time, you have to get rid of them. And what effect is that on the environment? Because that's the whole overall environmental impact. It's not just, well, I'm going to save some money now, but what happens at the end?
That's right, and it's a good point. What happens is one simple word: recycle. Right now, we don't have a recycling model to point to because the commercial solar business is really only about 10 years old at this stage. Of course, there's plenty of history, plenty of modules out there that are 30 and 40 years old that continue to work and continue to produce. But the truth is, most commercial modules, most home modules still have another 20, 30, 40 years of life on them. So there is no business opportunity for recycling modules. The primary components in a module: wire, glass, and metal. So there is no lead There are no hazardous materials. There are minute hazardous materials within the solar cell itself. So we anticipate that the recycling models that they're pointing to now will actually break the glass, recycle the actual cells, and recycle the aluminum frames as well. So it's not all that complicated. It's basically a big sheet of glass.
Okay, so it's not like all of these battery-operated things that you then have these heavy metals and all of the components that are very expensive to get rid of and to replace.
That's right. It's a completely different model. In this case, there are no batteries. So this is grid-tied. So this means that we are using the grid as the battery. That's the contention with net metering. The idea that, the town is using the grid, right? And if you were to produce 95% or 100% of your usage at a solar system, who's paying for the grid, right? So it's going to leave others footing the bill for the wires, et cetera, et cetera. That's the discussion. There's never a discussion. How many times have you heard about the benefits of solar on the grid? The fact that solar power works during the day when most people are actually awake and using power. So there's value. There's value to the power that's being produced online on the day that's actually being fed back to the grid. Specifically, if we're talking about summertime, let's think about Maine, let's think about the summer, let's think about the utility. What that means is we're actually reducing the demand on the utility. And what does that mean? It means that the utility does not have to invest as much in new infrastructure. And who does that directly relate to? The ratepayers. So this is not a one-way street. It's complex. There's no question about it. And there are some more fair and equitable opportunities happening around the country. Right now, we'll take net metering for Maine. So we do anticipate that things will change. But I would suggest that the question would be, if you waited throughout the entire computer revolution to buy your very first PC today, you could have gotten a heck of a deal, right? Really. A basic PC at Staples is $500. It was 10 grand when I bought my first one, right? So, I win. I waited and I waited and I waited and I saved all this money while everybody else was using computer technology, right? This is where we are. And I'll tell you what, this is a little different. Computers, they need to be updated. This is solid state technology. No, it's not a toaster, but it is meant to sit in the field and have no moving parts. We do not have tracking systems. We don't want the systems moving out in the field to just squeeze every kilowatt hour. Why? Just another thing to break. Literally. So if you want a little bit of extra production, you want to push it to 100%, we'll put in a couple more panels. Right? So I would have to say that, in today's presentation, that you're working with two reputable companies. We can both provide good systems. We can both provide ongoing warranties. We both have the financial sophistication to make a power purchase agreement work no matter what flavor you choose, fixed, variable, buyout, long-term. We can both make that happen. What we'd like to suggest is that Revision has really stepped up in this case to be the leader in this space over the last 15 years. And we have done the majority of these projects throughout the state of Maine and New Hampshire. And we continue to lead that effort. We continue to lead from not just a technological perspective, but from a mission perspective. We think our goals are well aligned from a company and from your perspective. And for that, I'll say thank you.
Are there some additional questions?
You continuously monitor if, say, a couple of panels weren't working, and you somehow see production is down. Would you have telemetering or something like that?
Everything is metered remotely, yeah, and we would be able to see on module level metering, at very worst, at string level metering, that something was out of whack. We'd be able to go in, identify exactly which modules those are. In this case, 50, 60 kilowatt system is pretty manageable. I would say, maybe 10 times the size of a ground mount residential system. So, this is not a really difficult one to manage in its size and in its complexity.
The other, I asked the other fellow too, are the inverters oversized though? Because I'm thinking, you may decide someday you want to put heat pumps in places, and our electricity is going to go up, but the oil bill's going to go down. And then it changes the formula a little bit. And adding panels is one thing, but adding new inverters would be costly.
We would agree that the trickiest part of that is usually not technological. The trickiest part is legal and financing, because you had an agreement, and if you're under the power purchase agreement, not really your solar system, right? So the agreement was signed at this particular size, at this particular date. If you decide in 3 years to put additional modules on, in essence, you'd have to look at it as a separate power purchase agreement. Might be with the same LLC. They may say, great, but there would most likely be new numbers attached to that, because and it could even be better, but we can't predict the future in terms of price of equipment, legislative changes. I've worked in Massachusetts for many, many years, and there were incentives that were up to 27 cents per kilowatt hour as just signing up, in addition to the value of the power itself. So I was modeling, in some cases, 40 cents to an investor per kilowatt hour. And the numbers were just unbelievable. But where did that go? It stopped, right? You've got another program in place. It changed. The whole market was set. These things they morph, right? So this is why it's impossible to stand here and say what will be, which is why understanding the goals of the committee are the critical nature. How much risk do we want to take? Because at the same time, maybe we do that and then we change LEDs. We put an LED retrofit in all the buildings. I don't know if we have LEDs here. If we put LED retrofit and we use less, and now, as this gentleman said, now what? We've just produced 10,000 kilowatt hours that we don't need. We just paid $1,000 in energy that we can't use, right? So there are kind of risks and rewards in terms of what are the goals. I would suggest that if the committee recognizes that heat pumps are a goal, I'm working now with the town of Hope, we both are, and they're incorporating an energy audit into their RFP, including heat pumps, right, which we both install. So this is something that now we can dig deeper into the whole thing and actually roll their additional usage into our design. So if LED retrofits are going to happen, let's talk about it now. Even if you're not going to do it for 2 years, so what? Let's reduce the system size. You're going to do this, you're going to increase. Let's increase the system size. But let's kind of identify what the sweet spot is for the town. How much risk is the town willing? No risk? Then be more conservative, right? A little bit of risk? Let's get up to the 90-95%. Crazy? Let's get up to 100. Woo!
Great, thank you. Are there any final closing questions? I want to go ahead and thank Revision Energy, excuse me, John.
You know, school to do,
I'm not aware of any.
and there may not even be any reason for the two systems to interact.
Yeah, I don't believe we can.
They're two very
Yeah.
complex, separate legal entities.
Yes, I'm sure.
The school is made up of 4 communities that fund it.
Yeah,
So for us to partner as one town with a district that's funded by 4 towns would be a real interesting bill to the lawyers.
If we still owned RES, it would be a different kind of thing, but we don't. So I want to go ahead and thank Revision for being here and Sundog for being here. And most of all, I really want to thank residents for turning out. I mean, we do have quite a few meetings and workshops where we have very little participation. I'm glad you got the notice. I'm glad you had questions. Again, if there's questions that further for either entity, just get them to Eric, and we'll certainly make a list of things that we need to follow up on. We're going to recess for 10 minutes and start the regular select board meeting at 6:30. Thank you.